Peace and love, family. This is Nicole Bafong. I am Western Regional Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and you're listening to the RE.B.U.K.E.E podcast with Marcus Jones.
Hi, everybody. I'm Leo Bridgewater, National Director of Veterans Outreach with Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and you're listening to RE.B.U.K.E.E.
Hey, this is Hassan Brown with 3B Farms, and you're watching RE.B.U.K.E.E with Marcus Jones. Smoke weed every day.
This is Marcus, and you're now listening to RE.B.U.K.E.E. Now, this will make the 35th episode, and we have something great for you. So listen up. Thank you for supporting my podcast, and please continue by supporting it by sharing it on your social media page or just sharing it with your friends and family by word of mouth. You can also support my podcast financially by donating to my Cash App. That is $ RE.B.U.K.E.E 06. That is $ RE.B.U.K.E.E 06. Or you can just become a monthly subscriber, it ranges from 99 cents per month to $9.99 per month. These donations are used to help uplift the Black community. It's to one day give out scholarships to a Black man and a Black woman attending a college of a HBCU. Now, before I get into the title, what does Mike Tyson, Snoop, the rapper Exhibit, Dave Chappelle, Whoopi, and Jay-Z all have in common besides being millionaires or billionaires? The thing is, it's weed. They are all part of this industry, and that is the weed industry is projected to reach $22 billion by the year 2022, according to Marijuana Business Fact Book. Now, I've always been intrigued about this, and I had this magazine in my house. It's called Green Entrepreneur magazine for about 2 years in my house. I wanted to invest in it. I never smoked weed, though I never had desire. That wasn't my weakness. My weakness was women. So yeah, y'all can keep the sticks. Give me the women. So the title of this podcast is Weed, the Next Generational Wealth for Blacks. And I'm glad to have on the show two advocates for the minorities representing M4MM. I don't know how y'all say it. Y'all say it a cooler, slow way of saying it, and then M4MM.
You just did it.
Yes.
M for MM.
Okay. And then we have a farmer, a guy that grows cannabis on here. We have Hassan Brown from New York. Speak to the people, Hassan.
What's up to the people?
All right,
Not
cool.
actually from New York, but I lived there.
Oh, okay. Where you originally from?
Born in Santa Monica, California.
Okay.
Parents are from Alabama. So they left here in the 60s and moved to California and had me. And then when they separated, my dad went to New York City and my mom stayed in LA. So I bounced between New York and LA and then spent my summers down here in Alabama with the grandparents.
All right. Yeah, I know what the summer of the grandparents means. Shelling peas and The Price is Right. But that's another podcast.
And you gotta sit still during a thunderstorm.
That's right too. That's right, man. That's right. All right, cool. The first question, man, is going to be for Nicole. And thank you for coming on the show, Nicole. How long you been in the cannabis weed industry, and what made you want to get into it?
Well, great question. Thank you for having me, Marcus. What made me want to get into the cannabis industry? It would have to have been my HIV diagnosis. I was diagnosed with HIV in 2017. I am of island heritage DNA. My mother's from Trinidad and my father's from Dominica, so I'm first generation American. And so I knew that I would be able to heal my body naturally using plant medicine. And cannabis just became instrumental in that healing process. I mean, I've been using cannabis since I was a teenager, but it didn't become as vital for me and the best quality of my life until I got that diagnosis. And so, it's just been a blessing that I've been able to understand the plant and its medicinal value and be able to educate my community on that.
Wait a minute. So I didn't know that about yourself. And so you're telling me that cannabis is essentially helping you with the HIV virus, correct?
Cannabis is saving my life. It is helping me to heal my body naturally. Yes, that is correct.
Interesting. It got interesting early.
I won't even kind of dig yet into the endogenous cannabinoid system, but the endogenous cannabinoid system fully explains why and how cannabis helps my body to heal. So that's maybe we can dig in that into this conversation or another one. But if anybody listening, ECS, look it up, endogenous cannabinoid system.
And Leo, how long you been in the industry, and what made you want to get into the cannabis industry?
I've been in the industry for 6 years now, and what made me want to get into the industry is, like a lot of other people, something either happened to me or somebody I love. And in my case, I'm a veteran, United States Army veteran, and I've had a number of friends who were attempted suicide and were successful at them. And so advocating, through, plant education through advocacy is how the business actually revealed itself to me. And understanding that, there's a macro and microeconomic impact we have to start thinking about.
Hassan, last but not least, how long you been in the industry and what made you want to get into it?
Well, to be honest, I've more or less been in it all my life. But the politically correct answer would be to say I've been growing legally for the last 6 years.
Okay.
However, I've got divorced about 4 years ago, but I have a 7-year-old daughter, and she was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. So I started getting more into the CBD side of things, and it started, making gummies and stuff like that for her, and it started helping her improve. So as she improved, I just, jumped in 10 toes deep into the CBD side and growing hemp. And I've been in it for the last 6 years. So RE.B.U.K.E.E Farms is the company. We're licensed in 10 states, and we have a 300-acre farm in Jamaica. So not only do I do THC, but I also do, CBD hemp.
Wow. See me, it's starting off remarkable already, man. The negative stereotype and stigma that weed has, but y'all telling me 3 different situations, how it helps you: HIV, mental illness, suicide, and autism. That's great, man. That's great. We're gonna go in right into the next question. We're gonna start with Leo, and then I'm gonna end it with Nicole. Please explain to the audience what's M4MM. What's the overall purpose, and how is the organization helping minorities in the cannabis industry? Leo. Yes, sir. Y'all having very in-depth website. It's like, damn, it's like you got to take a couple of days to get into it. So please tell everybody what is M4MM and what's the overall purpose.
Okay, so we are Minorities for Medical Marijuana. We are a 501c3, right, Nicole? And we we advocate.
Correct.
We advocate on behalf of, people, Black and brown people, women, veterans, you name it. We pretty much advocate for everybody for this. And we advocate to have the industry be more reflective of its consumers, and by addressing directly, equity inclusion, minority equity inclusion. And the reason why the website is as in depth as it is that you'll start to see that it's like the melting pot of those who are really doing, whose craft is this business. You could actually find them, through the M4MM network. If you were someone who was looking to get started in this industry, there's not an educational piece or anything in our organization where you don't find someone who looks like you, actually whose business it is. And that is to include the ancillary aspect of it too. So we do a lot of outreach programs to help folks become certified in, cannabis education. We have, we sponsor, I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart. It's record expungement clinics. I'm sorry, it's the tongue twister. Record expungement clinics. But we also advocate, for certain bills, like here in New Jersey. I testified to have, on behalf of S21, Assembly Bill S21, and Senate Bill S21 and Assembly Bill A21, to which, Roz McCarthy, our founder, CEO, actually helped craft bill language so that when we present ourselves to the state representatives in the State House, we come, being able to pay in the currency that they accept, which is actual bill language, giving oral and written testimony. So we're out there, fighting the fights that a lot of people don't know need to be fought on a number of fronts too.
Okay, great. All right, Nicole, what is 4MM and what is the overall purpose?
Well, M4MM is Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and I second everything that Leo said. Being a part of this organization, I started the chapter in Georgia in 2018, and was instrumental in testifying in front of city council and state representatives and different committee hearings, telling my story so that we could influence the bills, making sure social equity language is written into those bills when they get written. And so I now am the Nevada chapter president, and recently, last month, I was promoted to the position of Western Regional Director. And so I manage 8 states, including Hawaii over here on this side of the country, while Roz is handling everything she's handling on the East Coast, because our home office, our corporate headquarters is in Orlando. So yes, we are training other lobbyists. We're training other advocates. We're teaching people how this is done, how you affect change. Right now, I'm along with Roz, helping to write legislation and language in Arizona and in Oklahoma and in Washington State and in Oregon. And like Leo said, we're doing the work that most people don't know needs to be done. But thank God there's organizations like M4MM and the leaders in this organization that have been doing it for the last 5 years, 6 years. And really, doing a lot more to help with patient outreach as well in our communities. We know everybody knows the stigma that's around using cannabis, but in the last 4 years, people that are over the age of 65, their percentage of uses has gone up 75%. So that's an alarming number.
Fastest growing
those are people
demographic of users. They're the fastest growing demographic of users in our states now. Exactly.
And that you can contribute that your grandmother and your great grandmother your aunties and your uncles. And you can contribute that probably to the fact that more states are becoming legal, so they have access to it and they don't have to go in the closet and try to smoke it. But yes, those are the facts. I mean, these are the parents that grew up in the 70s. So we know they've always been smoking weed, 60s and 70s. It's just that the stigma around it and what it can do the propaganda is so deep, that is deeply rooted in our churches, in our faith institutions, that is probably the biggest challenge, as an advocate and trying to educate our communities. Getting into our churches where all of our people, our families are that really need it is the hardest challenge to overcome.
Number one hardest group of people to talk to. Number one hardest group of people to talk to is Black church people. Because most people don't realize Black church people are way more conservative than what you would see on Fox News. They still say devil's lettuce and all that, and gateway drug, and they still talk that way. And remember when I said macro and microeconomic impact, that inability to see past that has had those kinds of that level of impact on the African American community as a whole, because they're traditionally viewed as the gatekeepers to the African American community.
And let's not forget that this propaganda has oozed out of our country, because I'm working directly with a Rastafarian group in Trinidad and Tobago who is right now actively negotiating with the Attorney General to pass their cannabis control bill. And guess who the biggest proponents are, or opponents of it? The church, the Catholic Church. They're the ones that are telling the government that they should not legalize cannabis. And so it is not just here in America. It is in every community around the world that have indigenous people. Because this is an indigenous, this is an indigenous plant. So the people who have always used this plant as medicine are people that look like us. The people who have always used this plant as medicine are the people who look like us. And so we are the ones that have been criminalized for it all over the planet. And so the miseducation and the propaganda is real.
That's actually funny. Sorry to interrupt you. That's actually funny that you talk about Trinidad and Tobago. That was one of the issues that they had in Jamaica, was the church was stopping it from basically federally being legal there in Jamaica until recently.
The Black Catholic Church, the Black church, right?
Well, Christians period. Christians period. Yeah. Because it's not just Catholics, it's Christians. Catholics are just the loudest because they have the most money, but it's Christians all across the board.
Right. Yeah, well, black church people.
Leo, you gonna make me lose my fan base.
No. We talking to your fan base. We let you know that this plant is not the devil's lettuce. That you've been lied to by the white man who created that propaganda to criminalize you and demonize you. So no, don't get it twisted. We are not.
And listen, we bring, like, here's the thing. You got two people who represent M for MM, and we bring receipts. I'm one of the named plaintiffs on a lawsuit against the Department of Justice, and we were actually suing the Department of Justice on the constitutionality of cannabis being a Schedule I drug. Do you? And here's the thing. Do you know what needs to happen in order for something to be a Schedule I drug? Cannabis is a Schedule I drug, and in order to be a Schedule I drug, you have to hit three things. Not 2 out of 3, not 1 out of 3, but three things. And those three things are: it has to be highly addictive, you need to have a doctor administer it, and it has to have zero medicinal value. That's the three. Those are the three things in order for it to be a Schedule I drug. Now, how
like
you
cocaine
gonna have,
or heroin?
So how you gonna have cannabis as a Schedule I drug, but you got medical marijuana programs? See how I'm saying how the time for oxymoronic politics is over? You know what I'm saying? And that's why I said when you like, and for us, when I say M from M, we bring in receipts. Yeah, we about that work. I got receipts. I was there. You know, I testified in Senate committee to have post-traumatic stress disorder added as a qualifying condition to the New Jersey medical marijuana program. And that was the first mental health qualifying condition to be added to the New Jersey medical marijuana program. Bruh, we went from 7,000 people then to 100,000 last month.
And how are you gonna? And the hypocrisy continues. The federal government has approved synthetic forms of cannabis medicine that pharmaceutical companies sell.
635
let me do you one. Let me do you one a little bit better.
Go ahead, Hassan. Hold on a second. Go ahead, Hassan, and then we gotta get back to these questions.
Sorry,
you
went off on
guys,
a tangent.
No, you guys might not know this, but our federal government has issued license for marijuana to certain businesses and certain groups. They've done it for over 300 years. The DEA issues the license. So, depending on your relationships, you could have been legally federally growing marijuana for the DEA for the last 200 years.
Yeah, we knew that. And did you know that last week someone introduced the 1 to 3 bill in Congress? You know what that means? It was Marcus, you know what the 1 to 3 is? The 1 to 3 is that they want to reschedule cannabis from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. Now, why is that important? Because if that were to actually happen, anybody, you know what I'm saying, who has a cannabis anything, you are shut down the next day. Because Schedule 3 means you fall under FDA protocols. And the only ones who really wait out that storm is who? The pharmaceutical industry.
Yep.
The fact that something like that happened, you know what I'm saying? And that's one of those things that a whole lot of people didn't know about. That's why I said you need organizations like M4MM. Come on, bruh. I ain't trying to scare you. I ain't trying to scare your audience. I'm trying to let them know who's who. When it comes to the cannabis and hemp game, understand something. A whole brand new black leadership needs to be identified. Because I'm going to keep it all the way 100. The traditional organizations, you know what I'm saying, they have failed us. Do you know who the NAACP of the cannabis industry is?
No.
It ain't the NAACP. Do you know who the African American Chamber of Commerce of the cannabis industry is? It ain't the African American Chamber of Commerce. You know, but as far as I'm concerned, when I look at those organizations and as it relates to this industry, I wish they were really here in full force. I wish they was here. But understand something. I said I wish you was here. I ain't said I missed you. The difference. Because I'm just keeping it all the way 100. You need to know. We bring receipts, baby.
Okay.
Right,
all right. Yeah, I thought Hassan was passionate. Hassan, you've been trumped.
I just like to grow, baby. I just like to grow. You know, I'm good.
Right. I'm gonna go into this question. I read many articles saying that it was very hard for African Americans to get into the industry versus their white counterparts. What are some of the reasons why it's so hard for blacks to get in the business? And is it harder for black men or women to get in the industry? Hassan.
As they touched on earlier, you know, the stigma of being in the cannabis industry, period, and being black and dealing with marijuana is just, you know, it's just the stigma's there. But for me, you know, when we started farming, it was, can a minority person actually grow something? So it was hard to get, you know, access to investors and stuff like that to get money to even start the business. So eventually I wound up putting my own money into it. And, you know, after 2 or 3 years, people recognized that, oh, these guys can grow some quality stuff. And then, you know, the reputation carried over from there. So the first couple of years is a little rough. And to tell anybody to get into this industry, look at it like a regular business. If you're starting a business, you need to invest in that business and understand that you might not see any profits for a couple of years or the first 2 or 3 years, you know, before you start turning over profit. So I think people look at it from the black market side and they see fast money. Oh, I can, you know, let me spend $100,000. I'll get 100 pounds. I'll go flip it for, you know, make 150,000. And people looking at it from a black market side, they're not looking at it from, this is actual business. You have to pay taxes. You have expenses. And I think a lot of minorities don't even think about getting into the farming side. And I welcome anybody that likes to smoke to come to the farm and understand the process it takes to actually grow that bud that you're smoking. Whether it's some what they call cheap weed, some mids or some indoor or light depths or whatever it is. It's a process. It's a painstaking process to grow that, regardless of what it is. So I don't think people really understand that when you're coming from a consumer side and you're trying to get into the business side of it. Because, we gonna use it. If it's there, we gonna smoke it. But we haven't like, hey, you know what it takes to grow that? So nobody, as far as minorities are concerned, it's not a lot of us that want to get into the farming side of it. And that's an option that everybody can look at, honestly, and depends on how much space you have and what kind of budget you have. You can easily start off with an acre and just budget from there and build out, grow as as you progress every year, which is what we've been doing. So we've gotten lucky with that.
Okay.
And like I said, the last 6 years, I haven't had any issues. I've been getting licenses like very easy in different states. Nobody's like, oh, you guys from 3B Farms? Oh, here, yeah, that's the guys. They know what they're doing. And we've been getting the license and stuff. So, and if you're in Las Vegas, why don't you go over there to that RE.B.U.K.E.E store and buy something? And chances are you're buying it from my farm.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna be looking for your stuff.
I try to support. Yeah, I try to support any of the black grown, and let us know. I want to add you to our list, Hassan, because we do have a campaign going here where we're supporting the black cultivators and dispensary owners. So I would love to add you to our list so that people know when they come to Vegas where to shop and what to ask for. And to Hassan's point, out of all the farm land owners in the country, only 2% are black farmers. Okay, so that eliminates a lot. God is not making any more land. And so if you don't already own land, being a cultivator is a challenge. Raising that capital to get the land so that you can then go forth and start farming. And then if it's not land, if you're not in a place like Georgia or Florida, somewhere where you can grow outdoors, then you're talking about having to have the revenue, the capital to go buy property and the machinery that you need and the lights and all of those things, all of that capital. Real quick, sorry about that. Real quick, a very interesting stat that you want to hear. The two groups most impacted by federal rescheduling and consolidation of the industry will be women and minority-owned businesses. Women received the lowest amount of venture capitalist funding during the third quarter of last year. And the average wealth of black families is almost 7 times lesser than the average wealth of white families, making it harder for them to raise capital from family and friends. This is where most people, you're not going to get a loan to go start growing weed, right? It's not federally legal. And the banks are federally insured, so they're not giving you loans. So the white people who, if you're not already wealthy, you're able to borrow from friends and family. And then you add decades of a racist criminal justice system in this country. No wonder minorities only own 5% of the industry. So the cards are stacked against us. And what we have to understand, like Hassan said, there are other ways to get in this industry. You don't have to have a dispensary. You don't even have to have a cultivation license. There are so many different ways: transportation, packaging, make T-shirts that have weed leaves on them. You can make bowls that people use to consume. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And then
ancillary makes more. Ancillary makes more.
Yeah,
and that makes more money than everything.
You don't need to work. You don't need to worry about whether you're in a legal state or not. You don't, if you're making something, an ancillary product that people use that are in the industry that consumers use, then you don't have to worry about licensing. You don't have to worry about legality. I mean, depending on what it is, but for the most part, an ancillary business means you don't touch the flower, you don't touch the plant, and that way you have more leeway.
Okay. Subscription boxes are what's in vogue right now. Just as an FYI, people are loving getting their subscription boxes. Traditionally, like plant touching in Colorado a couple years back made $1 billion. Ancillary made 1.5. So last year, Colorado made $2 billion. So you can imagine what ancillary must have brought in. The people who made the most money during the California gold rush never actually touched the gold.
Oh, okay, great. And you, quick, Leo, why? You have anything to add for why it's hard for blacks to get in the industry versus their white counterparts, or you want to move on to the next?
The only thing, everything that Nicole just said, I second the motion on all of it. What I will also add to it is that one of the things that happens when you talk about people that's in this industry or wanting to get into this industry, they look at building their teams out like a football team. They have their quarterback, their wide receiver, nice O-line, monster of a defense. Here's the problem. You get that license and you run out onto the field and you figure out real quick the rest of the world plays the other football. They play soccer. And this is a global game. So this minority inclusion and equity stake stuff, those are just American issues. You know, when you talk about the Caribbean and everything, that's black people having problems with other black people. It's different here. And so when you start looking at import, export, and on a global scale, you know, these are all things that we should be talking about, you know, because there's so many other different things that you can do with hemp. You know, we're just at the tip of the iceberg, especially when you start looking at industrial hemp. You know, China's not exporting as much construction material as they used to because they're still recovering from COVID. So alternative construction material like hempcrete, hemp wood, you know, all that stuff is going to start to come into play. It ain't all about just CBD and CBG and CBN. It's a whole science, technology, engineering, art, and math to this. You know, we've been talking cannabis, but truth be told, the long money is really in the hemp game. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why Hassan can do what he can do. You know what I'm saying? Because right now, you know, like what we are, understand something, Marcus. We are the only ones that will ever experience the end of prohibition on cannabis that could do something about it. We picking the new old names right now. At one time or another, Anheuser and Busch were new names. And so what is required of us to start thinking about 4 or 5 generations down the road. You know what I'm saying? And that's a difficult thing to get people to do, to think, and when you live in an instant gratification type of society, such as the one that we live in. We have to start figuring out ways to make sure that things make sense now and that they'll make sense then. And if they don't, there should be mechanisms in place so that those generations can make it make sense then. And so, but we're not talking about it as much as we ought to, which is why I said a new type of black leadership should be identified when it comes to cannabis and hemp. And that's all I'm talking about, just cannabis and hemp.
Gotcha.
And a real quick gem to add to that, hemp can replace plastic.
Yup.
Oh, well, wow. if you guys happen to own an American vehicle, chances are your dashboard and your door panels are made out of hemp. Ford and General Motors have been using hemp for the last, 100 years. For their
the door panels in the BMW i6 is hemp. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I sit on the board of the Cannabis. Yes, I sit on the board of the Cannabis World Congress Business Expo, and one of our board members is Jeff Whalen. You know what I'm saying? And they brought man, the one with the butterfly doors. Yeah, man, all that shit is hemp, man. Yeah, that's all hemp. Yeah.
Hemp is the strongest, most durable fiber on the planet.
Wow. It's a brother in Chicago coming up with his own car line, right? It's a minority car manufacturer, and majority of the cars made out of hemp that they're putting together.
Marcus, it's about to come out that turns out hemp is a better biofuel than sugarcane now. And if you really want to clean up Flint, if you really, 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 really want to clean up Flint, just plant hemp and suck that stuff right up out of the ground. I swear to God.
Yep.
Most people don't realize the root system of a hemp plant, it go like 6 feet deep.
Like, and it filters the air. It filters the air too. So you could plant it in Hiroshima and it would filter the air and clean the soil.
All those, like, I live in Trenton, New Jersey, so we have schools and stuff the ground is contaminated and everything. They raise those buildings down and plant hemp. Got you some good ground there.
They actually can go a little bit longer than 6 feet, bro. They can get around 8 or 9.
See, look.
Trust me,
Leo, you crazy, man. Leo, you crazy.
I got plants that has gotten as tall as 30 feet tall.
Oh, wow, wow. Well, no, what, Hassan, we got to take the Gerald Levert. He reminds me of Bone Crusher.
Attention!
I told you.
Hey, that brother ain't never scared. That brother ain't never scared.
He fits the personality too. Oh man. Oh
Hey,
man.
I swear to God. Listen, man, I'm a veteran. You know what I'm saying? And this is how I see it. First of all, Marcus, Hassan, Nicole, all three of y'all, right? All three of y'all spent about 3-4 million on me. That's what it costs for you to that's what it costs for you to train me, to send me to war, to send me to school, all that. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff, them multiple tours in Iraq, and all that, you paid for that, okay? Even when I was working for L3. So here's what I've done. I hope so far. I hope that in the minutes that we've been talking, I hope that you got a better rate of return on investment than a damn suicide. And you are at 22 a day of those.
Wow.
You, taxpaying citizen, have more Vietnam veterans who have come home and killed themselves than that actually died in the war. And we talking over 58,000. And you, taxpaying citizen, you passed that number years ago. And so I'm just, if there's a way in which I can, get you to maybe rethink that whole thing. So that whole thank you for your service. Okay, yeah. You know how much you paying? Do you know? Do you really know if we're going to be fiscally responsible? Because here's the thing. The entire time that you're in the Army and the military, you know what they do? They tell you every day, they tell you how much the American people paid for something. Hey, Bridgewater, don't mess up that Humvee. The American people paid $80,000 for that Humvee. You mess it up, you get messed up. You know what I'm saying? That's how they do. They tell you. We know how much everything costs because they beat it in your head every day. So, I'm telling you how much, every time you see a veteran commit suicide, ask yourself, how much money did you spend on that veteran already? We already got the work ethic. You got the greatest military in the history of the planet. That's a fact. You do. And so when you look at what we are accustomed to, that means we are accustomed to living in environments that foster nothing but success. Now, here's the thing. We only know success one way, Marcus. Together. We've always done it together. That's why when you hear them Medal of Honor winners talking and everything like that, and they tell their story and stuff, all they tell you about is how they just was trying to save their friends, their family. That's all they was trying to do. That's how it works. I'm a warrior. You know what I'm saying? I was built to be a protector of the realm. I want what's best for the realm. You know what I'm saying? And so as I see it, and so this is all this fight and everything like that. That's where this come from. I'm not accustomed to this.
Nicole, I guess you picked the right one to join you on my podcast today. So I'm gonna have to skip some questions because of the passionate bone crusher.
No, I'm just playing.
In your opinion, let me see here. Let me get to Hassan. I had to skip this question. But I'm gonna get with Hassan. In your opinion, why hasn't the U.S. completely made weed legal? Do you think it's strategic? Because in the state of Alabama, they just opened up two new private prisons. You get what I'm saying? Is it strategic to keep the pipeline, people going to prison, or is something else? And my next question: Do you feel that the country should provide grants and tax-free loans as reparations to blacks to get into the industry?
Well, to answer the first question, the reason why it's not legal or they made it illegal was because of Big Pharma. The fact is that cannabis can do so much for you health-wise that you wouldn't need Big Pharma. So they did it really for money. Big Pharma was the one that funded the movies that started all the propaganda back in the days. So that's originally why it's there. Now, to let you in on something, the reason why they're talking about making it federally legal is because this pharmaceutical company known as Pfizer, they discovered 128 compounds in cannabis, and they went and they separated all of them, and then they put a patent on every single one of them and every combination of each one. So now Pfizer is trying to own the patent for cannabis. So now they're talking about making it legal, because now anybody in the business would basically have to go to Pfizer to get to license the compounds. So that's what's coming up. However, the people at Pfizer is stupid as all outdoors, because there's a whole lot more compounds in cannabis than 128. They only found 128, which works for me. So, and basically, anytime you create a new strain, you change the compound structure of the thing anyway, of the flower anyway. So you create, there's a billion different strains out here, man. So, and we'll always keep creating different strains, which is, what I do at our Chicago spot. That's what I have it there, to create our different strains. So that's to answer your first question. Kind of forgot what your second question was.
The second question was, should, since this is a booming industry, should the government as reparations give us loans and grants to get us in the industry, and so we can create generational wealth?
Well, politically, I think that all minorities should be exempt from paying taxes, period. This country is built off the backs of slaves. So all black people should just be exempt from paying taxes. That should be the first thing they do. As far as working out how to give us grants or give us money to do anything else in life, that's kind of above my pay grade. I wouldn't even know to say where to start with, because how are we going to come up with a number? We've got the number one economy in the world. This country's made trillions and trillions of dollars, and like I say to some of my white friends, recognize that slavery was real. And I'm not asking you guys, my white friends, to apologize for slavery, but you also have to recognize that you've benefited from it. Right. And that's where the white privilege thing is coming in. Right. So if you recognize that you're benefiting from it, then you've got to understand that this is where minorities are suffering, and we need to reap some of those benefits too. But to come up with a number or a grant or say how much or anything like that, I couldn't come up with that. But I definitely believe that blacks should, even the Native Americans, which they don't pay taxes anyway, but we should be in that mode where all, black Africans, black Americans should not be paying taxes. That should be the start of it for me. That should be the base of, all right, no taxes. Now, let's figure out everything else.
Cool.
So maybe Nicole could probably answer that better than I can.
Go ahead, Nicole. I was going to go to Nicole anyway. In your opinion, why?
Yeah, I got the question. Yeah. I got you.
So you want to go ahead? Or you got the question?
Yep, I got you. Yep. So to follow up with what Hassan said, pharmaceutical companies were only 1/3 of the conspiracy that made cannabis illegal in the 1930s. The main reason that cannabis is illegal is because of hemp. There's a book called The Emperor's New Clothes, written by Jack Herrera, who was one of the first advocates on the front line that wrote the whole story out for you very clearly. The reason that cannabis is illegal is because of racism, because of greed, and because of hemp. So the other two conspirators were Harry Anslinger, who was the head of the Federal Narcotics Bureau in 1930, which later became the DEA, and he was a well-renowned racist. Actually, he can be attributed to the death of Billie Holiday, Lady Day, the first victim of the war on drugs, so to speak. And the third conspirator, a rich racist white man as well, was Tom Hearst, who had just invested a lot of money in timber because he was the biggest newspaper magnate in the country. And at the time that they started this propaganda against hemp and cannabis, hemp was the biggest product that the United States was making. That was our biggest export, was hemp at the time. So his biggest competition, this Hearst gentleman, because he had just invested a lot in timber, was hemp, because of course you can make paper out of hemp. And so the majority of our money was printed on hemp paper. The majority of clothing was made out of hemp. And so once you understand those basics, those foundations of why why cannabis was made illegal, I mean, you have Reefer Madness. They made a whole propaganda film about, the devil's lettuce, and if you smoke this weed, it's going to make darkies think they're better than white men. All of that stuff was out there and very prominent. But they associated weed, marijuana at the time, with the immigrants coming up from Mexico and demonized it in that way. But their real agenda was to link hemp and cannabis together, weed and hemp together, so that Tom Hurst could eliminate his biggest competition, because he knew that it required much less chemicals to make hemp into paper. It's not as toxic for the environment, so once you understand that was one of my biggest passions. When I got diagnosed, the week I got diagnosed, I stayed in the hospital for about 10 days. I hardly slept because I was on my phone doing all this research and learning, and then the endogenous cannabinoid system, that just blew my mind. I didn't understand. My father was a physician. I didn't understand how medical doctors weren't talking about this vital system. So once you understand that really helps you to break down and understand why it has happened and transitioned into today. And the reparations are cool. Yeah, we shouldn't be paying taxes, but we should expunge everybody's record that ever got arrested for cannabis. Let everyone out of prison whether you got arrested for cannabis the first time and your second or third hit was for something else. If you got any charge for cannabis possession or distribution, out of jail and expungement. And then yes, that's what we do with M4MM, and is write social equity language. So we write it into the law that those type of people should be first in line for a license, and they don't have to pay for it.
I will get you into this question, Leo, but I'm pressed for time, so I'm gonna get you to this next question. This is a question that went on the list. How do you feel about white people getting into the cannabis industry and becoming rich on something that black people get long prison sentences doing the same thing?
How do I feel about white folks getting rich in the cannabis industry built on the backs of black and brown people?
Oh, you can rephrase it that way.
That's right. I just want to say it my way to make sure I got the question right. I would say I'm not surprised that they're doing exactly what they should be doing if you're the dominant race. It's incumbent upon us now to, now that we are aware, it's incumbent upon us now to mobilize to counter that, and that's what we are doing. And I just want to say real quick on the last question, check the Schaefer report and then pull the LaGuardia report. Okay, those are the reports that like, and the Schaefer report is the one from the 70s. And the reason why I'm telling you to pull those things down is because if you take what Hassan said and you take what Nicole said, and if you look up those reports that I just said, you'll have a pretty good timeline of when things happen and what happened. Those things that happen is that at every one of those points, the United States government decided to go with propaganda versus science. And so that's that. I just wanted to add that part in there, just so that you know.
Okay.
And then, but yeah, with white folks doing what they're doing in the industry, it's not surprising. I mean, you can look at every step of the way in terms of whenever a new emerging industry happens to be coming along. Look at what happened with, John D. Rockefeller and the oil industry. Look what happened with J.P. Morgan and the electric business. That's what this is. And so for us, but it's still in its infancy, bro. We don't even have an industry standard unit of measurement yet. That's how infant we really are. You know what I'm saying? And so you gotta understand that there are so many challenges, that we have to, so many other conversations that we really need to be having than getting stuck on, social justice issues. If this was a television show, this industry is in season 8, episode 6. We are in season 1, episode 3. So spoiler alert, it's not a gateway drug. That's the season 1 finale. And that's the simplest way I can put it to you, bro.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go to Hassan, man. You spoke earlier about speaking with your white friends and their white privilege and all that. How do you feel about white people getting into the industry and making a large profits versus your brothers counterparts that are in doing hard time doing the same thing?
Well, as Leo said, it's they're dominant in this society or in our country, so they control the mechanisms that make life easier for them. That's part of their privilege, and we don't have control of those mechanisms, so we have our own fight that we have to do just to even get our foot in the door. And that's just the reality, And then, like I said, lucky for me, my focus was strictly on I'm just gonna grow. I'm a farmer. This is all I do. I just farm. So all the ancillary stuff that I could be doing, I just didn't jump into that. I just kept life simple for me. We don't even brand a product. Like, we grow different strains, we make our own strains, but I don't sit there and advertise or promote it. We grow it, there's a distributor, they come get it, they package it up and process it, and they do whatever they want to do with it. And that's how I get out. That's my in and out as far as the industry is concerned. But I don't control the end product or the end result. So it goes back to the people in power that, they make the rules. Like, here's how you're going to get a license. And then you got to get a license for this. You got to get a license for that. Then you got to, then you got to get bonded. Then you got to get insured. It's the same thing, the same situation that we had in Jamaica. In Jamaica, when they made it legal, the Rastafarians were happy as hell until they went to go get a license. Then they got to spend, $50,000 to get a license. Them brothers living up in the mountains, man, they ain't got no money like that. So it's kind of putting them in a hole.
$50,000 to get a license
in Jamaica, yeah.
That's just a drop in the bucket.
But then you got to be. But in Jamaica, it's not a drop in the bucket. So, but then you have to have your property set up in compliance. So your fencing, your cameras in it, and then you've got to have Wi-Fi. So now you're like, okay, but we're in the mountains. We're up here where they make that Blue Mountain coffee. There is no phone service. There is no Wi-Fi, but you have to have all of that set up. So now you're building an infrastructure just for you to have a license to grow. So that was one of the fights in Jamaica that we had, and then helping with the Rastafarians. So the Rastafarians can still grow without all of that headache. But to be licensed like we are, we had to deal with, all the BS. So it's that's the fight. But you've got people that are like, and then the Rastafarians, if they can only carry so much around them. So if they have more than enough, then they're taking them to jail. So So but again, you got people making the rules, and in order for us to, we got to play the game. You got to play the game. So you got to learn what the game is, and then learn how to play the game, and then hustle the system from there once you get in.
Gotcha. But that's killed. That hearing that number, man. So hearing that number alone, I can understand why the numbers is so small for blacks being in the market, and it's hard for them to create generational wealth. Ain't too many of us got 50K, man. Just let me slap 50 racks on you, man.
Yeah, but look, it costs way more than that to get. It costs way more than that to get licensed in California.
In the United States, period. 150,000. The cheapest state that has ever done it was Oklahoma. They did it for $2,500, and now they got 1,500, 9,000 dispensaries and cultivation and licenses that they issued.
It's 20,000. Yeah, it's 20,000 here, and if you don't get it, you get 18 of it back.
Yeah, the beautiful part about Oklahoma is Oklahoma, as much of a Republican state as they really and conservative as they are really liberal with the license. So you can be, if you're minority, it's easier to get a license and get it going in Oklahoma than anywhere else, because they're not even looking. Oh, you could be an ex-con. Hey, come on in. They're going to give you a license. So
it's an open market, it's an open market. Yeah, but most states weren't like that. So in other states like California or New Jersey or any of these other Maryland, they put a cap on how many licenses you can get. So
Yeah.
of course, the people that have the money are going to be first in line because they have the money. So the people trying to raise capital here and raise capital there and find a building and get the equipment, by the time you even think about applying, it's gone. They're gone. And then you're lucky if those states even offer social equity licenses, which means
so that's
the language
problem
that
with Georgia. That's the problem with Georgia.
Right.
So what Georgia's doing, Georgia is only issuing 6 licenses. That's it.
And who you think gonna get those licenses?
Yeah, but then they've got it separated and they break it down to where you have to have an indoor facility. It's either 50,000 square feet or 200 or 100,000 square feet big. And you have to, and they don't allow flower in Georgia. So you got to turn it into you got to process it to a tincture or an oil or a rub. So now.
And that equipment is not cheap.
It's not
cheap. That equipment is not cheap.
So this is how they price out, minorities trying to get in Georgia. You're paying $100,000 for a 50,000 square foot building for that license, or you're paying $200,000 per year for a 100,000 square foot license. So now that's just your license fee you pay every year. But now you have to set up a whole indoor grow facility. So depending on your square footage, you're easily spending, $500,000 just setting up an indoor grow, maybe $1 million depending on your plumbing. But now that's just growing. You gotta have your nursery room, your mother room, your clone room,
your light.
You gotta have your bedroom.
Your electric bill is crazy.
That's one section. But now you also have to process it. So now you're spending $2, $3, $4 million just on the equipment alone to process that stuff. Then you got to buy some more equipment to manufacture it into a product. And then you got to go and then, sell it, or distribute it. But all of that alone right there will cost you anywhere from $5 to $6, $7 million, depending on how much you want to pay for your equipment and how big your building is. But you got to keep in mind, you're still paying that $200,000 every month just to keep the license. And they're only going to issue.
And then there were and then there were some states that required you to get all of that stuff before you could qualify to apply. So you done spent all that money and you might not get a license.
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
So, and hopefully Alabama, because luckily we've been able to hang out with the legislators here, and a lot of the state representatives have been working with them in Alabama. So fortunate, for us, because we've got their ear a little bit, we've been able to get them to okay, we know you want to do this. We know you want to limit it. We know why you want to limit it. We know why you don't want to have flower. Okay, but you got to give people room to do X, Y, and Z. And as long as you have room like that, then it'll be a little bit easier for everybody else. But the reason Georgia, the South is going to make, all the states in the South, they're going to have a medical marijuana program. However, most of them are not going to allow flower because, number one, black market, they can keep brothers in jail with black market if the flower ain't legal. That's the first thing. But number two, they just couldn't control it because the black market would go through the roof. Because it's okay, you grew 1,000 pounds, but then, I could grow 2,000 pounds and have 2,000 pounds in the street because of the taxes. It's going to be ridiculous. I'll give Alabama this over California. Alabama's, they're going to lock the tax in at 33%. So 13% will go to the state, 10% will go to the county, and 10% will go to the municipality that you're operating in. That's it. I'm paying up in Humboldt County in California, it's 65, 70% of my money goes to taxes.
Yikes.
So
I don't think the South can stay in the dark ages that long because, like you said, flower is going to have to be legal in order for them to produce the products that they need. It might take them a little bit longer than everybody else, but it don't make sense. Yeah, it don't make. You're right. They're going to be last in line.
They're going to be last in line,
right.
But at least right now, I know that they're hey, let's do it, and they just want to make sure they can control not so much control the growth, but control the money. Because once they know that once flower is legal, they can't really control the game. And because
and the South has the best land, but you're also in the Bible Belt, so you're going to have those opponents coming at you because the churches do not want it to be legalized in any shape or form. I've heard people from churches testify, well, doesn't the government make weed drugs? Don't the pharmaceutical companies? Isn't that safer than the plant?
But here's a good thing about, I guess, Alabama and even Georgia for that matter. There's like an influx, even though they're conservatives, they're younger. They're closer to my age. They're 51. So you've got younger people in there, and they went to California, they went to Colorado before they even started implementing their cannabis programs in the state. They went to Colorado and California to see what they were doing. They understand that the tax revenue is where the flower is and the money they can make. Once these states in the South, once they go medical marijuana and people are stuck with oils and vapes, once they see how slow that revenue's coming in and it's not meeting those expectations that they had, like they saw when they went to California and Colorado, they'll open it up. And it might take a couple of years. It might take longer than that, but you just have to wait and see. But the beautiful thing with Alabama and even Louisiana for that matter, because Louisiana's only going to issue like 6 licenses. However, the licensees can contract out other people to do certain jobs. So I should be, I'll get contracted out to grow THC if I don't get the license myself. And then the licensees can also contract out dispensaries. So even though it's 6 licenses, but there'll be like, maybe 50 businesses or 60 businesses created off that one license. So that's the beautiful part about what Alabama's doing and Louisiana. But Georgia is, you're just stuck.
Got you.
And Alabama's license fee is gonna be like $25,000. So that is.
Hey, Hassan, the New Jersey state tax rate is going to be 6.25, and municipalities get to add an extra 2% excise tax. So we're going to be coming in at 8.25.
Hey, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you ain't doing it. That's
on retail sales. Now on cultivation, there'll be a $42 excise fee on every ounce cultivated on the cultivation side. But cultivation,
that's they ripping off the growers then.
Yeah, cultivation has direct access to delivery now, and delivery will be allowed to carry inventory.
But at $42 an ounce, that is that's killing. That's like growing in California. I'm not going to stay in California if I was going to grow in New Jersey like that. Man, I can see if it was $42 a pound. That's different. Like so in Nevada, when you're doing cultivation, they'll come based on your weight, and then you get they'll tax you on your weight. Okay, you owe us this much. You drop it off at the distributor, you get your check, you pay your taxes as a cultivator. California is somewhat the same way, where they're gonna weigh you up. You get it from the farm, you go to the processing company, they're weighing your stuff up after they test it, of course, and then boom, you're paying based on your weight. But not that's $42 an ounce.
Yeah. Hey, Hassan, I gotta go. Hassan, I gotta get to the last question, bro. Let me get to the last question for y'all. So last question, Nicole, which we kind of went on a tangent about this. So, cannabis, the weed, the next generational wealth for blacks, which we're trying to get into this industry to create generational wealth. What advice you want to give to black people that want to get into the industry?
Well, I think I've said it already, but I'll just reiterate how important it is to consider the ancillary market. Both you and I have been talking about it during the interview. There aren't as many restrictions on the ancillary market. It's cheaper to get in. Point of entry is cheaper. You can have an online store. You don't even have to have a brick and mortar. There's so many different options too. That's the best part. Let me just say this. There are 50,000 different applicable uses for cannabis. 50,000. That's a lot. There's more than petroleum, and petroleum's in everything. There's more than sugar, and sugar is in everything. So when I say just educate yourself, make sure you understand the medicinal value of this plant. If you're thinking about opening up a CBD store, You want to consider whether your product is an isolate or a full spectrum. So just educate yourself. Learn as much as you can about this plant, because there's so much to learn. And believe me, we're still learning more every day. So this industry is in its infancy stages. It still has so much more to grow and so much for us to learn. Reach out to organizations like M4MM. That's what we do. We help to guide you. We help to educate you. We help to connect you with resources so that you understand what's going on, so you can stop listening to propaganda and really understand the power of this plant. Cannabis saved my life, and it saves more people than I can count. It saves their lives. It gives them relief. It heals their bodies. And then, of course, it can feed you, clothe you, shelter you, all that stuff. So, those are my 2 cents.
Got you. So, Hassan, what's advice you want to give to Black people that want to get in the cannabis industry, particularly the growing industry, to create generational wealth?
It's not even so much the growing side. What Nicole said was perfect. I think that, one, like most of us, we'll all gravitate to what we know and what we're comfortable with. So in the cannabis, most of us are just consumers and users. So we need to be educated to learn about the 50,000 other options that you can have within this industry, and then pick a lane and learn about it and educate yourself on it. That's what we all need to do. Like, I think that's the number one thing, is just the education and learning, especially like the organizations that they have. I mean, dude, I'm putting their stuff up on my website tomorrow, so they get a link so people can just check them out and say, hey, learn something, go to these guys. And and then my son is kind of like into that same. My son is where they're going. That's where my son wants to be. When he came to California to come hang out with me at the farm in Northern California, the people at Humboldt State University loved him so much they asked him to write their curriculum for marijuana. So, but now my son is like, I want to do something with HSBCUs. I want to write, create a class or, create something like that in those lines for HSB, so we can teach brothers and sisters, hey, here's another avenue that you can get in the marijuana industry, but you can do it this way, you can do it that way. There's a lot of sisters that are into fashion and design. Okay, well, design some clothes and use hemp. Like, you're in the industry. Like,
it's a marketing point. You can say that your clothing is biodegradable or safe for the environment.
Yeah. So it's just
to mark up the price.
Yeah. So to me, it's just the education. Process. Hey, just educate yourself on all the different avenues. But again, going back to, most of us are going to do what we know and what we're comfortable with, regardless of what it is. That's just what we're going to do. But that being said, whatever that is, I'm pretty sure there's a lane within the cannabis industry that you can attach yourself to that, and you're probably comfortable doing. So that'd be my advice, just the education part.
And last but not least, the teddy bear, Leo Bridgewater. Please tell us what advice you want to give Black people that want to get into the industry so we can create generational wealth. Excuse me.
Well, I would say that to echo everyone's sentiments, if you listen to everything, all roads lead back to education or lack thereof. And so I believe in also effective communication. And so at this point, particularly where I'm at in this career of mine that I've carved out in the cannabis industry, I would say seek out those like myself and Nicole and Hassan. And when you do, make sure you learn the language that we speak, because when we are around each other as business owners in the cannabis space, in whatever capacity, we speak an entirely different language. And it's important that Black people know, that this industry is very incestuous. It's less than 2 degrees of separation from everybody. We all know each other. And so, this thing is also tribal. This industry has, chieftains and shamans and village elders and warriors and all of that. That is real. That is not, I know it sounds metaphoric and everything, but in all honesty, that is real. And the first thing you need to be able to do is you need to be able to speak the language that we speak and understand that. You know, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, and Al Sharpton are not Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, and Al Sharpton in the cannabis industry. I mean, we know who they are, but they ain't that. And Jay-Z is not the king of the blacks. So please stop going to them to ask them to figure out what it is that we should be doing in this industry. Again, why I keep saying a new type of black leadership within the cannabis and hemp industry is desperately needed and must be identified. So that's what I would say. If we're going to have any kind of pathway to which we can create not just generational wealth, but generational revenue, you know, we have to start thinking like in those Black Wall Street terms, creating like multiple independent economic ecosystems. And so expand your way of thinking. Think macro, micro, and then also think mesoeconomics. Mesoeconomics is the creation of the institutions that allow for micro and macroeconomics to happen. And so if we ain't talking about this type of stuff, you know, we need to start talking about it now.
Great. I'd like to thank Hassan, Nicole, and Leo, Gerald Levert Bridgewater for coming on the show. Thank you. I learned so much today. Yeah, they got on the tangent for a little while, but we closed it good. My last parting shot is that I learned so much from y'all, and I can tell y'all have extensive knowledge and wisdom and expertise in the industry, and hopefully the listeners can learn something from you all and go to y'all websites, and hopefully if they have the revenue based on the numbers y'all threw out today, gee whiz, if they have the revenue, they can get into business and create that generational revenue and wealth that Leo is talking about. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank everyone for supporting me. And before I end the show, I always say my favorite slogan, that is knowledge is power, economic freedom is salvation. But if you put the two together, we can build a great nation. This is Marcus Jones with RE.B.U.K.E.E, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.